If nurses are the angels in white, then female doctors must be the goddesses in white. She appeared to be around my age, perhaps 35, maybe a bit older. Not bad-looking at all, quite the opposite, in fact. Her features were undeniably appealing to men. Yet when I addressed her as doctor, there was no reaction at all. She remained expressionless, not even the hint of a smile, as she briskly scanned the X-ray and MRI images displayed on the monitor. The ambulance had been called by the other party, and she handled everything with a cool, almost detached demeanor. She seemed more like a goddess in black than in white. My name is David. I had taken the afternoon off from work to go to City Hall. On my way back, I saw an elementary school boy playing with a ball near the street. He suddenly dashed into the road to retrieve it, unaware of the danger. A large tree created a blind spot for the drivers, and though traffic wasn't heavy, the cars were speeding. This is bad. He's going to get hit, I thought as I instinctively ran to stop him. The screeching sound of a car's sudden brakes echoed almost simultaneously as I lifted the boy up. Ouch, the car's hood hit around my waist. The driver rushed out, panicked, but I assured him I was fine. Despite my reassurance, he insisted on calling an ambulance, and for the first time in my life, I was taken to the hospital. Though I had no visible injuries, the doctors decided to run X-rays and MRIs. While waiting for the results, the boy I had saved was brought in by his mother. His face was on the verge of tears as he apologized repeatedly. "I'm fine. I'm indestructible," I reassured him. "But remember, never run onto the road again. Understand?" Knowing I had prevented a major accident made the pain in my waist seem trivial. I was in high spirits until the young nurse came to fetch me for the examination results. She smiled at the boy and said, "You're lucky, saved by a handsome man." Her smile was so bright it felt like there were twinkling stars around her, truly an angel in white. Then the goddess in black returned. There were no twinkling stars around her, just dark storm clouds as she coldly treated me. "David, about this weekend." "Not again. I told you I'm good," I said, declining yet another invitation from my junior at work. He was obsessed with singles events and had dragged me along to one about 6 months ago. It wasn't my thing, and as expected, I didn't meet anyone special. The experience was entirely unremarkable. Though I do feel like it's time to settle down, I prefer a more natural encounter. I wasn't eager to attend another singles event, especially when someone else had already caught my eye. The female doctor who had been so cold to me, her aloofness only made her more intriguing. I couldn't stop thinking about her. In the case of a traffic accident, symptoms like whiplash can appear later. "If that happens, make sure to get checked out at an orthopedic clinic," she had said. Her words echoed in my mind as I touched the part of my waist where the car had grazed me. It was still a bit painful. Maybe it wasn't fully healed yet. Perhaps I should go back for another checkup. The next day, I returned to the hospital. The friendly nurse recognized me and asked, "Oh, the one from the other day. Are you not feeling well?" I managed a smile and asked the question that had been on my mind. "Is the doctor who's been seeing me married?" "If you're talking about Dr. Emma, she's single." "Why do you ask?" she replied. I did a silent fist pump, trying not to show my excitement. "Just curious. A female orthopedic surgeon is rare," I said, hoping she didn't see through my real motive. Just then, I heard my name called. When I entered the consultation room, Dr. Emma was checking my medical record on the computer. "What brings you here?" she asked. "My waist still hurts from the accident," I explained. She glanced at the record again. "It shouldn't be a big deal," she said nonchalantly, suggesting another checkup if I was still concerned. "Is this your first traffic accident? Some patients overreact, especially the timid ones," she added, half smirking, her tone slightly condescending. I felt a twinge of annoyance but pressed on. "But it still hurts." "I can prescribe some painkillers," she said, staring at me. "It really isn't a big deal. If you don't believe me, why not get a second opinion from another hospital?" I had no choice that weekend. I found myself at my regular bar, sharing a drink with the bar owner. As we talked, a thought crossed my mind, and I asked, "Do female doctors usually marry other doctors?" The bar owner paused what he was doing and looked puzzled. I continued, half talking to myself. "They earn more. They're smarter. They have strong personalities and high pride. They're out of reach for an average office worker like me." As I muttered these thoughts, the bar owner asked, "So you want to date a female doctor?" As I muttered these thoughts, the bar owner asked, "So you want to date a female doctor?" "No, not at all. It's just a general opinion, just a general opinion," I quickly responded. But as the words left my mouth, I realized my mind was filled with thoughts of her. She didn't give me the time of day, treating me with nothing but coldness. Yet, the colder she was, the more the fire within me burned. Was I the type of guy who liked such treatment? As I pondered this, my phone started ringing. It was a picture message from my junior, the one who loves matchmaking parties. He had sent me photos from the party he attended that day. Seeing how desperate he was to get married made me feel pitiful, and I realized I wasn't that different. After looking at the photos, drinking alone at the bar suddenly seemed less appealing. It was just past 7 o'clock in the evening, but I paid my bill and headed home. As I stepped out of the bar, I heard a woman's voice call out to me. I turned and saw a young girl smiling at me. I didn't recognize her at first and thought she might be calling out to someone else, but there was no one else around. "How are you feeling?" she asked, and then it clicked. She was the friendly nurse from the hospital. "Oh, I hardly recognized you. I thought you were just some girl," I replied, surprised. A white nurse's coat is powerful. It can turn any girl into an angel. It turned out she lived nearby, so we walked together, making small talk. "By the way, is Dr. Emma always like that?" I asked, bringing her up. "Dr. Emma? Like what?" she asked, curious. "Just between us, she seems kind of aloof and hard to approach," I admitted. To my surprise, I was the first patient to describe her that way. The nurse told me that Dr. Emma was not only an excellent doctor, but also friendly and popular among the patients. I nodded, listening, but I couldn't shake my disbelief. "Well, I'm going this way," she said as we reached her turn. I watched the angel in civilian clothes walk away, wondering if Dr. Emma was only cold to me. Could it be she was playing hard to get? My thoughts turned unusually optimistic. The pain in my back disappeared before I finished the painkillers Dr. Emma had prescribed, and there were no new symptoms, so I lost the excuse to visit her clinic. However, I noticed that the chain on my seldom-used bike, parked at my apartment complex, had rusted. I decided to take it out for a ride to test it. The chain made some noise, but there were no serious issues. The bigger problem was the flat tires and faulty brakes, so I decided to take it to a bike shop. As I reached an intersection, the light was changing from green to yellow. The bike shop was just across the intersection, and I was too lazy to stop, so I pedaled through. Unfortunately, I collided with a turning vehicle. Thanks to the driver's quick braking, it didn't turn into a major incident. I scraped my arm when I fell, but it was just a minor bleed, and my leg wasn't in much pain either. The female driver who got out of the car went pale and offered to call an ambulance, but since I was the one who had ridden recklessly and it was just a scrape, I refused. We called the police, dealt with the accident, and I didn't get home until the evening. I regretted riding the bicycle. I should have left the rusty chain as it was. That thought lingered in my mind, and maybe because of it, I had no appetite and felt down. My mind was foggy, probably from the exhaustion of dealing with the police and the accident. The leg that got hit started throbbing, so I decided to go to bed early. The next morning, a sharp pain shot through my leg as I rolled over in bed. I felt nauseous and out of sorts. Her voice echoed in my mind. Symptoms like whiplash might appear later in the case of a traffic accident. Is this it? Is this what she meant? I thought. I had no choice but to go to the hospital. I called in sick to work and went straight to her clinic. "How can I help you today?" she asked as I staggered into the consultation room. Dr. Emma, who had been looking at her computer, quickly stood up and supported me, gently leading me to the examination bed. "I was riding a bicycle yesterday and got hit by a car," I explained, describing how the pain in my leg had worsened overnight and how I felt nauseous. "Let's get you tested right away," she said, her voice filled with a kindness that wrapped around my heart, unlike anything I had heard from her before. Her usual cold demeanor had completely changed. Could it be that I was seriously injured? Would I need major surgery or suffer long-term effects? On her advice, I was admitted to the hospital immediately. I asked my colleague, the one who loved singles events, to bring the minimum necessary belongings from my home. Later, Dr. Emma appeared in my hospital room to inform me of the X-ray and MRI results. "You have a mild concussion and some bruises," she said. "The concussion is very mild. A neurosurgeon has confirmed there's nothing to worry about. There are bruises on your leg, but no abnormalities in any bones. You're lucky. All my worries about surgery and long-term effects were unfounded. Really? I asked, relieved. Really, she confirmed with a kind smile. Seeing her smile made my heart race. She was most concerned about my severely bruised and swollen right leg. If the pain was too much and walking alone was difficult, she suggested I stay in the hospital for about a week to observe the progress. Of course, I followed her advice. Is the female doctor who just left your assigned doctor, David? My colleague asked when Dr. Emma left the hospital room. Yes, I replied. He crossed his arms and fell into thought. When I asked what was wrong, he said, I feel like I've met her somewhere before. My injury was healing well, and I was told I could be discharged as planned. There was no need for any special rehab. On the day of my discharge, I was packing my belongings when Dr. Emma came to see me. You're being discharged today. Congratulations, she said with a warm smile. Thank you for everything, I replied, bowing my head in gratitude. She seemed a bit shy, and her subtle smile moved me deeply. Without thinking, I blurted out, actually, at first, I thought this wasn't going to work. What do you mean by that? What wasn't going to work? She asked, looking at me with surprise. I mean the compatibility between us, I admitted, feeling awkward as I scratched my head. When I was first brought in by the ambulance, you seemed cold. But later, a nurse told me that I was one of the very few people you treated like that. She paused and looked around the room, then leaned close to my ear and whispered softly, I have a break coming up soon. Once you're ready, maybe we could meet in a courtyard? Okay, I responded, a bit suspicious but intrigued by the idea that she had something to say that she didn't want the other patients to hear. Hope and anxiety swirled inside me as I completed the discharge procedures and headed to the courtyard. She was waiting for me on a bench, and as I approached, she opened up with a bitter smile. I'm the one who isn't good at keeping personal feelings out of my work, she confessed. Personal feelings? I asked, surprised. She nodded and explained that even though I had gotten into a car accident while protecting a child and was injured, I joked about being indestructible because my injuries were minor. That had angered her. Hearing this, I started to understand. Doctors give everything they have to care for patients brought in by ambulances. Her anger at my light-hearted attitude was just a reflection of that dedication. I felt bad and remained silent, reflecting on my behavior. Then she suddenly changed her tone, jokingly mocking herself. And this is a bit embarrassing, but when you kept calling me doctor, I realized something. Realized what? I asked, confused. Don't you remember that matchmaking party? She asked, leaving me even more puzzled. The only matchmaking party I could remember was one I attended about 6 months ago as a favor to my junior. During the event, it was customary for everyone to ask each other what they did for a living. I had casually mentioned that I was a doctor, which led to some playful teasing. People started calling me doctor as a joke. Then it hit me. At that matchmaking party, my junior had mentioned there was a female doctor present. For fun, I had kept calling her doc and teased her quite a bit. Wait, was that you, Dr. Emma? I asked in disbelief. She nodded, her makeup and vibe completely different from what I remembered. Or maybe, just like angels in white coats, it was the magic of her uniform that made me not recognize her sooner. She had remembered the teasing from that party and acted cold toward me because of it. I'm sorry about that, I apologized. But when doctors are off duty, we're just normal people, right? She smiled, a mix of professionalism and something more personal showing through. Since then, I've been seeing her for consultations once a month. But outside of the hospital, we've been meeting 2 or 3 times a week. Just the other day, I took her to my regular bar for the first time. The bar owner whispered to me, "Is she the one you talked about?" When I confirmed she was a doctor, he nodded several times. What happened? She asked, looking puzzled. So I explained how I had previously discussed with the bar owner whether a doctor would marry another doctor or if they would consider dating a regular guy like me. She chuckled, and I asked, "What do you think?" It depends on the individual, doesn't it? Some doctors marry other doctors and some don't. There are people who are set on marrying within their profession, but it isn't always the case, she replied. So do you mind not marrying a doctor? I asked cautiously. I don't worry about the job. I don't have to marry a doctor. If I did, I wouldn't be here with you, she said, picking up the menu with an innocent face. I couldn't help but smile. I had thought aiming for a female doctor was aiming too high, but having high aspirations in love is what brought us together, and it's what will keep us together moving forward. So how did you like the story today?